There is so much more to life than what we see. What if we were capable of feeling it? This is the Inner Guide Podcast, a journey back to you. Welcome to my first episode of this podcast. At this moment, I have no idea what I will name this podcast, but I'm pretty sure by the end of this episode, I will know what the podcast name will be. My name is Isabel S Churchill, and as you can probably already tell, I am a French Canadian. I grew up in a small village in New Brunswick. And I grew up in a place where it's easy to take life easy, I guess. It's easy to relax, and it's right across from the ocean. So I grew up in a place that family and friends, and it was safe. I grew up in a place where it was fairly easy to live life, I would say. Not everyone will agree with me that comes from there, but in some ways it was fairly simple. And when I was fairly young, I did have experience with the spiritual world, but when you're young, you don't really know about it. It's only later in life that you realize what you really experienced. And I went through a phase of being absolutely disconnected from spirituality, disconnected from God, disconnected from all these aspects that for me were a bit woo-woo. And it was just such a difficult, it was difficult for me to perceive that there was a God. And I feel like I want this podcast to be about this journey through skepticism and belief and faith. And I want to share that with all of you because sometimes we go through this spiritual journey and we don't really realize we're actually going through it. We don't realize what we're experiencing. And I know for some people, spirituality is easy and it was always there, or it was like a great awakening and all of a sudden they saw life differently. But for me, it wasn't like that. And I have a sense that a lot of you that are listening will find yourself into this experience that I have and this experience that I will share with you over this podcast. So like I said, I grew up in a small village in the province of New Brunswick. This village was all French, and in New Brunswick, it's a bilingual province, which means that the government is forced to speak English or French and provide services in those languages. And it also means that as a citizen of that province, I had the opportunity to learn French and English. So it's always been quite a journey, but for me, I've never really limited myself, which I'm really fortunate about. So I did my study in psychology, my master in counseling. I became a psychotherapist. I work in different fields. A lot of people will say that I have so much experience in different fields. I work with correctional services, with offenders. I work with military families and soldiers. I worked with the wellness department. I did a lot of work with Diabetes Canada. And all these experiences were very logical. It was a lot of working on the logic, working on with statistics and numbers and based on research. And my master and also my undergrad was really research oriented. I did my psychology bachelor in Moncton, which is it was really focused on experimental psychology. And I was at a young age really connected with the process of research and science. And I worked in a science lab or a psychological lab for cognitive behaviors and movement of the eyes and connecting with behaviors. So I've worked in really deep research field, and I've always had that scientific mind. And for me, everything was we could explain everything through science. So when I started experiencing things that I couldn't explain through science, it became challenging. It became a weird experience. And you'll see that those podcasts, I'm drinking tea. I want this to be very informal because I want you to feel like you're in my world, and I want you to feel like we're connected. And for me, that's how I live life. What you see is what you get. So I don't want this to be, I don't want this podcast to be something that I plan and organize in so much in advance. Of course, I want it to be perceived as professional, but at the same time, I want you to feel like you're in my world, because that's, for me, that's the community. That's the aspect of community, is that we have a little glimpse of everyone's world and we share that aspect together. So to get back on what I'm sharing with you is I come from this, I'm just trying to explain to you that I come from this basis of science. And my story is really, and it's still to this day, if I try to explain everything through science and experiment and experience and reproducing the exact same result with the exact same process and things like that. So for me, talking about spirituality today is quite amazing when you think about it, because it didn't, well, maybe it started that way when I was a child, but most of my life, it wasn't that way. Just to give you an idea, it's only since 2019 that I'm really into that aspect of myself. So I was born in 1981, and I went to university. I did all my degrees and my master, and then I went to work at a military post. It's located in New Brunswick. It's a huge Canadian Force base for training. It was anyway when I was there. And when I was there, it was the same year that Canada decided to go to Afghanistan. So working with military families, working with soldiers, being so close, our office was on post. So, or close to post, I should say. It was in the community where the military base was. And you just have like this connection with something that is bigger than you. And no matter what is your position in regards to the army and the war and all that, no matter what, there's still humans that experience a tremendous trauma. And during that year that I was there, it was very difficult because we lost, I believe it was 5 or 6 soldiers at one point that we lost on the same day. And it was heartbreaking. It was so hard. And I'm sharing that because for me, it was really a trigger, and it was hard. And because I work with the Military Family Resource Center, I had to be strong for the families. I didn't have kids. I had a boyfriend at that time. And it was just, I had to be strong. And a little bit later after, and that was back probably in 2007, I would say. I was driving to work, and all of a sudden I kind of lost track of what I was doing. And when I really took notice of what I was doing, I was at the hospital, the Gagetown Hospital. I drove myself to the emergency. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't feel like myself. And I just told the nurse or whoever welcomed me there that I just didn't feel much. And I don't know why I was driving myself there, but I needed help. And at that time I was diagnosed with a seasonal depression. And I think it was all caused by all the like now looking back, some of you will know what I mean by empath. An empath is somebody who can feel the energies around and is tremendously impacted by those energies without really knowing. And being an empath in a space where people was living a lot of grief, people were dying, people were losing loved ones, I think I was taking on that energy, and that's why I was diagnosed with depression. And I want you to know, like, you who is listening that have some kind of mental health, or I should say mental illness, diagnosis, know that sometimes it's not yours, but it is yours to learn. It is yours to take care of, and it is yours to take responsibility of. But sometimes those things that we experience does not belong to us. And I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to talk more about this in this podcast. So for me, it was really, it was probably the trigger, the moment where everything changed in my life. But it wasn't like it changed overnight. So that was probably around 2007. And my doctor, she was really good. My physician was really good. She prescribed a psychologist. I had an experience with the psychologist. And I'm pretty sure now, looking back, that my psychologist was probably some kind of energy worker, because I remember her, like the last session we had, where, don't forget, like I'm not, I was a science person. I was not aware of what intuition was. I had no idea that there was an energetic aspect of us. Although I did recognize it on the earth, I knew that the earth had an energy field, so I don't know why I thought that humans were built differently, but now I know better. And when I worked with my psychologist on my last session, we did some kind of like, I don't know if it was hypnosis, but she put me in a trance, and I remember being in the middle of just the universe. And looking around me and through my mind's eye, of course, and I could see all the lights, and it just felt so peaceful. It just felt so amazing. And I'm losing track of the timeline, but I know that back then I was like only starting to open up, that realizing that there was something else, because through that same period of time, my physician recommended that I do some mindfulness program. And in New Brunswick, I've been gone from New Brunswick for such a long time. I'm not sure if it still exists, but there was a mindfulness program that was run by a physician, and it was recognized by health insurance. But of course, when it's paid by health insurance, it's overbooked. There was a wait list and all that. And it was kind of important for me to start working on being more mindful, because I realized that back then I was under a lot of stress. Like there was so much stress. And I didn't recognize how much stress I was going through. But there was, and mindfulness was a recommendation from my physician to reduce this stress. So I applied to the program. Of course, it was a wait list, so I didn't really get in the program. And I am the kind of person that if my physician tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. And I always want to do it right away. Like for me, waiting 6 months was not an option. So I had to find something else. And back then, we're talking about between 2007 and 2010. And back then, there's no, the internet is not as expensive as it is today. And I can't recall how I found this program, but I remember somebody telling me about a program, and I just registered to it. And now, you go on the website and all the details are there, but I didn't have that. I just knew it was a program that in my head, it was like a meditation type of program. So I showed up to the first class, and I'll always remember because we were all sitting in a circle. There was probably about maybe 10 of us. It's hard for me to remember. Some parts of me have a hard time with memory. And I was told it's because of the intuition is stronger. When the intuition is stronger, the memory is not as good. So for those of you who have memory difficulties, that's a good explanation. It makes us feel better about it. But yeah, like there was this group and we were sitting in a circle and we were going around, and for some reason I can't recall the name of the teacher, but she was amazing, and I still hold a very special place for her in my heart because she was my first guide, my first spiritual guide in some ways. So we're sitting around the circle and everybody's introducing themselves and telling one of the thing we had to say is why we registered to this program. And then all of a sudden, like I start listening to people and I'm like, this is odd, because some people are saying, yeah, I'm here because I have premonitions, or others, I'm here because I see dead people, basically. I see my grandfather who passed away. I'm here because I know I'm a psychic and blah, blah, blah. And then, like, the more I was listening to people, the more I realized I was in the wrong place. So when it came to introduce myself, I just said, hey, at that time I was Isabel S, and I'm here because I thought this was a meditation / mindfulness program, and I think I'm in the wrong place. And my teacher, we all started laughing because I don't take myself too seriously, like in those things. Back then I was probably more serious, but I thought it was the funniest thing ever, like that people were actually talking about psychic and all this. Like for me, it was so foreign. And it just shows you that the name of the program was Intuition 101, I think. And for me back then, intuition was the same thing as meditation. So it just shows you how little I was connected to that aspect of our reality. And I'll never forget, like the teacher was kind of started laughing and she said, it's okay. It's your choice. If you want to stay with us, you can certainly stay. I'll be happy to do a meditation in your honor at the end of this session. And she had meditation, which was great. So we did a meditation and all that. And I thought those people, and she said something like, there's no coincidence why you're here, right? Like that's such something we say so much in the spiritual world, is that everything happens for a reason. But back then I didn't really have that belief. So for me, I thought it was funny. But by the end of the class, I was quite comfortable with everyone. And being in the world of science, I've always succeeded in science and experiments, and because I'm so curious. I want to know everything. So curiosity really won me on this one. Like I really wanted to know more. I thought that was so weird. For me, it was the weirdest experience. And I just remember being weirded out by the fact that some people saw dead people and were actually talking about it. So I decided to stick around with this class, and it just opened my eyes. I remember graduation day where for graduation of this program, it's a house that exists in Fredericton, New Brunswick, that was converted in kind of like a church, but it was a house, so there was rooms a little bit everywhere. And she would hide our car keys, and we would have to find it intuitively. And I remember finding it fairly fast, like within 5 minutes, which I was completely amazed. But what was even more amazing is that she would observe us do the search, and she said, like, you could have found your keys in the first 30 seconds because your eye looked exactly where the keys were as soon as you stepped into the room. And I'll always remember that, because that is something that you will see through your evolution with spirituality, intuition, is that your intuitive sense is the hardest part of you developing your intuition is to actually trust it and be aware and conscious of it. Like, I was not conscious of my body then. I was not conscious that my eyes looked somewhere, but my body knew. And our body is amazing. It's so intuitive. And you'll hear me use the words spirituality, intuition, energy. For me, it's all the same. I realized that spirituality is basically being connected, not with God, with yourself. And I know for some people it will resonate the wrong way, but you are God. Like, you are part of God. And that's what I realized through this process. So for me, the energy body, the energy around us, spirituality, and also the aspect of intuition is all the same thing. It all becomes the same thing. And I'm hoping that through this podcast, I can help you realize that also. And for me, it's about that. It's about basically realizing that there's nothing magical or woo-woo about our sense of intuition or our spirituality, because it's part of us. It was always part of us. So I'm trying to maybe normalize it. Normalize it, because if we start normalizing this aspect of us, we will live such a beautiful life, and most of us will be really comfortable with yourself. You'll stop seeking outside what has always been within you. So that was probably the trigger. That's what really started my process. That's what allowed me to really start, I wouldn't say believe, but start paying attention to maybe there was something more to life than what I thought then. And after that, my one of my good friend, Amy, she came to me once, and she was like, "Hey, like, I have this colleague who have this Reiki class," and I knew nothing about Reiki then. And she's like, "I really want to take the class. You want to take it with me?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I really did it for her, honestly. And most of the things we do, and I was actually an expert in motivation, and most of the things we do, usually we start a new activity. It's usually extrinsic motivation. It's something external to us that motivate us to do it. And then eventually it becomes intrinsic. It becomes something that we love doing. But back then, I can tell you, it was really, I was doing it for her. So I had this amazing experience with Reiki. First, the teacher was a nurse. And I believe she worked in the surgery section of the hospital, I think, if I recall correctly. And I thought it was really interesting that somebody from science, who practiced science every day, and the medical science, is actually into Reiki. So I thought, okay, that's probably why I agreed to do it, because my friend is also a nurse. So I thought, okay, I'll try it. If nurses do it, maybe there's something to it. So I did the course, and through the course, we were probably 6 of us, and everyone like experienced something. Like, they either sensed the heat of the energy or the tingling, or some people experienced something a little bit bigger than life. I thought then, like, oh, I saw some colors, I saw this. But for me, I experienced nothing. And to be in a small group where everyone's experiencing something and you're the only one that's not experiencing something, I kind of felt like I had to lie and say, oh yeah, I saw colors too, or I felt the heat. But honestly, I didn't. And you know, you just want to fit with the group. So I kind of lied then and expressed that I did, but I didn't. And it was really bothering me that other people were experiencing something I wasn't. So being that scientist in me, I wanted to repeat the experiment and try the experience again and again until maybe I'll feel something. So I stick with it, and thank goodness I had Amy, because I don't think I would have stick with Reiki. Reiki level 2 came along. I decided to take it with my friend also. We did like distance Reiki. And for me, Reiki 2 was kind of an eye-opener that, okay, other people feel it, even though I don't feel it, and I still didn't feel it in Reiki 2. Other people feel it. And I thought, that's really interesting. And it was also back then, you have to remember that I'm a psychotherapist. And back then I had my own practice. And I had been working with people, some people for a long time. And I was like, they're not evolving. What am I missing? And I decided to become a personal trainer, a group fitness trainer. I had a school of dance also. I was a Oriental dance teacher. So I was trying really hard to combine the physical, the body, and the mind, because I thought that's what I need to do. And I thought of mindfulness. So I was trying to do that for my clients. But when Reiki level 2 came along, I realized that maybe Reiki was a way to finally find that missing piece for my clients. And it was. I mean, Reiki allowed me to really trust my intuition. And I didn't know why sometimes you don't know why, or you don't realize you're good at something. But now that I look back, I was really good at noticing the small, subtle energy shift in my counseling sessions. So if somebody would say something, I would know that it was a lie, or it wasn't the whole truth, or somebody was withholding information. And I intuitively knew what to say or what question to ask. And that's why I had a certain success with my clients, is that I just had this ability to go a little bit deeper than the surface. And I think that most psychologists or therapists are intuitive. We just don't recognize it. We just don't practice it. And Reiki allowed me to open that door that, okay, there is more than just what we perceive. And level 3 was, I don't even know if my friend Amy did level 3 with me. But I knew that then I really had that drive to complete my levels. And then I decided to do my master teacher. I became a Reiki teacher. And that's when everything lit up for me. I was just like, whoa, now I can feel the energy. Now I know I have some kind of intuition. And it just became such a part of me that I discovered. It felt like it was for the first time, but today I know that as a child I was connected to that part, that energy part of you that just know the subtle energies around you. And that I can explain it in different ways. You can sense that somebody is sad when they say they're happy. Or for me, it would be going in the forest. So living in this small village, we had a forest behind the house. We had the ocean in front of the house. And I could sit in front of a house and know that I would see a whale in the ocean. Just because I could sense it. I could sense, oh, there is a whale. So I would really look and I would find it. Or I would go in the woods and also knew that there was a bird in a specific tree. Like that is the subtle energy. You sense it. You sense that something is there without really having observe it or having observation of the facts around you. So I realize today that I've always had this ability in me, but what I also realize is today I am teaching, I have a school, an energy healing school. It's a French school, so I developed my business in French first and created that school. My goal is to translate it in English also, probably in the next couple years. And I've worked so far with over 5,000 people all over the world. And what I'm realizing is that we all have this ability, that energy, that intuition, that spirituality. It's all in us. It's just a matter of, do you want to flip the switch do you want to actually explore that part of yourself? And if you do, you just open up such a beautiful world. And honestly, there's nothing magic about it. There's nothing woo-woo about it, because it is all based on what we already know. Just look at the Earth, the planet Earth. Just look at how it all holds its atmosphere. Like, how does the air stays in the atmosphere? Well, and how come we have this ozone? How come there's life on Earth? So when you start looking at Earth, you realize there's a magnetic field. There's something that holds the gravity in, which is part of the core, which is part of the Earth itself, the way it functions. So if the Earth is capable of doing that, why wouldn't we have a magnetic field? Why wouldn't we have a protection field like the ozone? Why wouldn't we have the ability to protect our own energy? So when you start looking at what we already know in science from life, there's no reason why we can't explain our ability to manipulate energy around us, to heal ourselves. And just think about it. Your body is healing itself every single day. Just like think about that for a second. You're regenerating cells every single day. Your hair is growing. Your nails is growing. It's just constantly, your skin is constantly evolving and changing and healing, and it's already an ability that you have. So why is it so far-fetched to believe that you can heal yourself outside of the medical traditional way that we do with medication and surgery and all this? And I'm not saying that the medical world is not useful. It is extremely useful in emergency. But right now, just looking at our society, the medical system is failing us for anything that is related to chronic disease, to what they call immunity system illnesses, to viruses. We just went through this COVID, or we're still through it, whatever. But it's mind-blowing to me that we have lost our faith in our ability to heal. And I feel like this podcast is about that. It's about our journey to heal, our journey to take back our powers, our abilities, to realizing how amazing we are. And it's not magic. It's science. It's based on what we know already of other beings. Like, isn't it crazy when you think about it that we know way more about some species than us? Like, just think about that for a second. Do you know how your digestive system works? Do you know what is the role of your liver? Do you know what's the role of your pineal gland? Do you know what's the role of your thyroid gland? And yet, most of us don't know the role of inflammation, for example. Do you know why you have inflammation? Do you know why your body reacts that way? What it means? Why you have headaches? Most of the time I have a headache, or I used to have headaches, and I wouldn't question it. I would just take a pill. Like, we don't even take the time to understand our own self. But yet we want to know everything about everyone else. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. We're trying to build a station on Mars, and yet we haven't really figured out how the digestive system fully works. Most scientists don't even know how it works. It just works. That's all. And that's why most stuff that we create to help support people is not lasting. How many people are suffering of digestive issues right now? You probably are one of them. And how much help have you got from the medical system? So it just blows my mind that we don't take the time to know ourselves. We don't take the time to listen to the body. And it's almost like we have gone through a process of ignoring the body. How many of you ignore when you're hungry or when you need to use a restroom? I've worked in the healthcare system for a long time, and I work in hospitals, and I know that nurses have the tendency to not go to the bathroom all day. How can you do that? Or not eat at all? So, and I'm sure it's not just a hospital. I'm sure there's other places where we learn to ignore the physical body. And what happened when you ignore the physical body? Well, the symptoms are basically little alarm systems. And if you're ignoring your headache by just taking medicine, well, the headache will become something bigger eventually because you are constantly ignoring the body. And for me, that's part of intuition. Intuition is the ability to tap into your body, to tap into your mind, to be conscious of yourself, to be really connected with the three aspects of you. And I call that the Trinity. For me, the Trinity is the connection between the mind, the body, and the energy aspect of you, or spirituality, or whatever you want to call it, mind, body, soul. For me, it's the energy body. So I want this podcast to really be about that aspect, rediscovering who you are, rediscovering how you function. And I say rediscovering because as a child, we're pretty intuitive and we pretty much know and recognize the signs of the body. That's why most babies will cry. They know what's going on. They can sense the energies around them. So I want us to go back to that, to how we were as a child, and normalize that. That's really my goal, is to normalize this aspect of us. There's nothing magical about it. There's nothing woo-woo about it. It's just who we are. And that's the beauty. And I think you'll hear people talking about shadow work. I think that's the biggest shadow work of our society, is to actually face the music, face who we truly are. And we are beings that have some energy aspect to it. So to reconnect with that. So thank you so much for listening to this first podcast, and I hope you will embark on this journey with me. I hope you will be there to also give me some feedback about what you want to hear, what you want to learn, what are the challenges you're going through. For me, it's always important to make sure that the community feel like it's for you. And I just hope that my story, my experiences throughout these episodes will inspire you to open up, to normalize the energy aspect of us, and really go a little bit deeper into finding yourself. And the reason why we do that is to have a fulfilling life and inspire others and support others around us. But truly, it's about you. It's about really finding who you are and being happy, being comfortable, being in a place, in a space where you feel like your experience on Earth was actually worth it. Which I can tell you, in 2007, when I had my depression, I didn't know how long I would go, but it was definitely not an experience. I was not experiencing a fulfilling life. I was content, maybe, but I was definitely not fulfilling. So I'm sending you all my love. I'm super excited for this new journey, and I hope I will hear from you. And yeah, you take care, and I'll see you at the next episode.